Your programmed drums sound fake, and you know it. I know it because I've mixed tons of songs from bands that sent me tracks with every velocity hit at 127, sounding like a drum machine from hell. But I'm about to fix that permanently, for both our sakes. By the end of this video, you'll be able to make your programmed drums sound like this. If you don't know me, I'm Dan Ferguson. I produce, record, and mix heavy music, and the unsigned bands that I worked with in 2025 alone totaled over 1 million streams. And a lot of them use programmed drums. So let me show you how to do it the right way. Now listen, a lot of people are going to tell you that humanizing the drums is what makes them sound real. That drums being on the grid is what makes them sound like a computer. But that's not true. As a matter of fact, I know a lot of A-list producers that edit real drums tight to the grid on a lot of the records that you probably listen to. And you know what? Sometimes that's part of the sound. If you're listening to a tech death band and the drums aren't locked in tight, it's probably not going to sound right. Now, is there a place for feel, for some push and pull in the grooves? Of course. But my point is, it's not the biggest reason that your drums sound fake. You may not realize this, but drum libraries are created from real drummers playing real drums. But the way that people use those libraries has zero resemblance to the way a drummer actually plays. A real drummer doesn't hit the snare at the same exact velocity every time, and they definitely don't hit the kick and the toms with the same velocity as they hit the hi-hat. So what we're going to do today is break all of these things down piece by piece. Velocities, timing, ghost notes, and at the end, some bonus tips that really bring the drum performances to the next level. I'm going to use GGD Invasion, but this works in any drum library. Superior Drummer, Easy Drummer, Steven Slate, doesn't matter. Same principles apply. So let's start with the single biggest reason that your drums sound fake: velocity. So many people load up their drum library and leave every hit somewhere between 120 and 127. That's the equivalent of having the drummer stand on their throne, jump off, and smash the drum like the Macho Man. Nobody plays drums like that, in any genre. So here's my velocity cheat sheet for heavy music, starting with the snare and crash accents. These should be between 95 and 115. Those are your biggest hits, not 127. 127 is the drummer physically abusing the drum. Not only is it super rare for a drummer to hit that hard, it also doesn't sound best. I rarely use 127, if ever. Let's check out an example of everything at 127, and then one at the velocity ranges that I just explained. Alright, moving on to ghost notes and soft hits. These should be between 25 and 45. These subtle taps between the main hits are what give a groove its feel. Now obviously, not every groove is going to need ghost notes, but if you do use them, stick in that range. Let's check out what it sounds like. Alright, let's talk about the kick drum. You should stay between 90 and 110. Slightly softer than the snare. Why? Because a kick drum resonates differently when you absolutely slam it. You actually lose that low-end punch when you bury the beater, as they call it. And again, nobody curb stomps their kick drum. Drummers tend to play sitting down. So let's check out the difference. Here's an absolutely slammed kick drum. And here's a properly programmed kick drum. Now, one thing to keep in mind, when a drummer's rolling really fast double kick, you shouldn't be at 110. There's just not enough time to put that kind of power into the kick, which is why so many drummers use triggers live. Let's listen to a double kick section that's way too powerful, and then one that's done right. All right, let's talk about the toms. These are tricky. Toms can range anywhere between 110 at their loudest and 70 at their softest, maybe even softer. What you got to think about here is what the drummer's actually doing. Think about a drummer playing live when a breakdown's about to happen. They stand up and you get those 3 or 4 powerful hits right before it drops. Those are going to be between 100 and 110. But if you have a double time groove with a big tom fill going into the next section, those are going to be significantly lower. Those tend to live between 70 and 90. Let's check out the difference between toms that are programmed way too strong and toms that are dialed in just right. All right, moving on to the hi-hats. These should be between 85 and 105. Remember, drummers don't beat the hell out of their hi-hats. They ride them, which is a really confusing verb to use. The point is, what we're after here is feel, not power. Here's a section of hi-hat that's way too strong, and then one that's dialed in perfectly. That sums up your cheat sheet. And don't worry, everything that I just talked about is available in a free download in the description. Go grab it. But I want to talk about the other really important aspect of programming drums, aside from velocities. And that is, think like a drummer. Now that may seem obvious, but let me explain. A drummer has a maximum of 2 hands. So if you want realism, you cannot program a double crash on a snare hit. And a drummer can only play so fast. So if you have an inhuman groove at an insane tempo, it's not going to sound real. A drummer also tends to play fills with their lead hand hitting a lot harder than their trailing hand. And I'm not talking about 108 to 106. The variation in velocity may be as big as 10, so program accordingly. Now you may be thinking, who cares? Well, the fact is, drum programming is a relatively new technology, but people have been playing drums for hundreds if not thousands of years. The point is, humans are accustomed to hearing what a drum performance actually sounds like. So if you go rogue and break all the quote-unquote rules, it's going to sound weird, and you probably don't want that. Now, if you don't want to program drums, but you also don't have the budget to get a good drum sound at home, I highly recommend you watch that video right there. I go into all the details of how to properly track drums at home without breaking the bank. Check it out. I'll see you there.